Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Rasheba here. If you're already subscribed, thank you. You already know what it is. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Rasheba. This is my vlog channel where I talk about living in New York City. I share a vlog with you guys. I give advice on moving or living in New York City, as well as travel vlogs, adventure vlogs, anything fun, exciting, and just living life is on this channel. However, I did make the executive decision to separate and make a separate channel, which is now my main channel, and that's where I basically share style hauls, style videos. I also do fitness hauls. I share health and wellness, as well as how-to and advice videos. However, today on this channel, I will be doing a video about how to find an apartment in New York City. Alrighty, so my window is a little bit open and I do live in New York City, so hopefully you guys don't hear a little too much of the action that's going on outside. But if you do, ignore it. If you don't, prepare for it, because this is what you will see or hear when you live in New York City. So finding an apartment in New York City, I think, is completely different than finding an apartment anywhere else. The only other place I lived in besides New York is Florida, so I can't really say how it is like in LA, Atlanta, Missouri, or other places, but I do think New York City, from what I know of and hear from my friends looking for apartments in those cities, is completely different. So, disclaimer, when you are looking for an apartment in New York City, humble yourself real quick. I do think my apartment I looked out on, my apartment is a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, so I do have 2 other roommates. However, we each have our own bath. Anyone can tell you finding that in New York City is very rare. I do live about like 30 to 45 minutes away from the city, but I think it's worth it. I pay less than $1,000 for my apartment. That's not including utilities and everything. So I think for me, that's worth it. It's within my budget and it's helping me to save money. So yeah, but I do know that for others, it can be hard. My first apartment in the city was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. However, I mainly took one of the baths to myself because it was so small that none of my roommates wanted it. So I kind of had that bathroom to myself, but I did pay more than I do in this apartment. So yeah, so like I said, disclaimer, humble yourself when you're looking for an apartment in the city, because it is not like looking for an apartment anywhere else. So let's get right into my actual tips for looking for an apartment. So before you even start the apartment process, I think this goes for like if you were to look for an apartment anywhere, figure out what it is that you want in an apartment. But I think with New York City, it's like different compared to looking for, like I said before, looking for apartments anywhere else. Know that having laundry in your apartment is going to be very rare. I'm not saying it's not possible, I'm just saying it's very rare in New York City. However, you want to change your like wants to like, will there be an apartment, like will there be a laundry at least in the unit somewhere? So for me, my laundry room is in my basement. However, for some time I was going to the laundry place that's like right next door, like literally it's across the street from my house, and I would just drop off my laundry to them and pick it up like a day or 2 later. It would be folded, ready to go. And for me, it worked out because I just didn't have the time to do my laundry. And for me, if you're anything like me, the folding part is just so exhausting. So I just couldn't do it. And it worked out. Like I said, it was equivalent to me washing my own laundry, and it took way less time. So that's one thing that you want to think of when you're thinking of your list. 2, roommates. Before I moved here, I was living by myself, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna find an apartment by myself. Started looking at apartments. That got humbled real quick for me because that was not in the budget. So you have to humble yourself and just know like what your budget is. And living in New York City, you may have to like do things that you don't want to do. So I had to have roommates again, which was, for me, I think I lucked out. I think I had better roommates in New York City than I did in Florida, but granted, I was younger, I was in college, so having roommates in Florida was me having like kids who were just coming from like living with their parents, and now they're not living with their parents, so they were just like woo woo woo. So I've had like my share of roommate stories, but I think for me it wasn't that bad. I did have like one bad roommate situation, which I had a video about that. If you want to go check it out, go watch that. But for the most part, I think my roommates were pretty good. My roommates now, I think, are like amazing. Of course, it's not like 100% perfect, but I think for me, it's like it's close to it. So yeah. So I think you need to decide like those different things. One thing that was like a big thing for me, and I think some people don't think about, is how far away is the train. The reason why I was thinking about that is because being that I'm from Florida, I didn't want to have to walk far to get to the train when it was cold outside. And every time I've looked out on that, where I've always been like a block or a few blocks away from the train, but not too close where like I'm getting the train action, but close enough where it's like a 10-15 minute walk. I've had friends where it's like they pretty much have to like haul like and walk to get to the train. So that's something that I think a lot of people don't think about. Another thing is how big is your room gonna be? Being that I came from New York City, came from Florida, and I was living in a 1 bedroom, I had to get rid of a lot of stuff. So that's another thing I like to think about. Like, okay, if you're someone was living alone and now you're not living alone, how much stuff do you need to get rid of before you move? Like just little stuff like that. And also if you were living alone but now you're not, do your roommates need to come together and decide like who's bringing what, so that way you guys don't have a lot of stuff? Because one thing that happened in my first apartment is, ironically, all of my roommates, we all had just been living alone. So when we came together, my roommates were like, we have all the kitchen stuff, no one else bring anything. So we had like 4 sets of pots and pans in my last apartment. So I literally got rid of everything of mine because I was like, you know what, let me just get rid of it all because these girls have it and it's no point in me bringing it and taking up more space in the kitchen. Being that our cabinet space here is way less. So yeah, so those are just little things that I think about when I'm looking for an apartment in New York City. So find out what your list is before you start the hunt. Another thing to think about when you're looking for an apartment, or timeline wise, is one suggestion I got from a lot of people is don't start looking until a month before you're ready to move. I know for me, being from Florida, I was used to like already having my apartment a year in advance. In New York City, nope. You could like literally, when I started like casually looking, you could look for an apartment and literally within an hour it could be gone. I'm not even being dramatic. It could literally be gone within an hour. So you don't want to get your like hopes high. It is good to look and just see what's out there, but I highly suggest waiting until like a month before you're ready to move, so that way you can hopefully like lock in something. Max 2 months, but even then you're kind of stretching it, but you're kind of not. But I still think a month is the best time frame to move, just because even like my apartment complex that I live in now, some of my old neighbors moved out. They literally found their apartment a week before it was time for them to move out. It can be stressful if you're not used to this type of moving situation. So it was for me the first time I moved to New York City, but after that I didn't care. Like when I left my last apartment, I literally told my landlord like a week before, I need help looking for an apartment, and I found an apartment like within a week. Like it goes just like that. And plus you just never know. So don't worry if you're like one of those people that like lose control and just know you're finding something, but do it a month before. Okay, so I just gave you guys like a bunch of like random tips, but now to help you like settle down on what it is you want in an apartment, who are you living with? For example, when I first moved to New York City, one of my roommates was just her. However, she was in a relationship, and you guys know relationships with New York City could be like that, where it's like you're living with basically your roommate's partner as well. And then also my other roommate had 2 cats. So basically, even though I got a 3-2 when I first moved here, I was basically living in like a 3-7, because my roommate's girlfriend was there not often. They like went back and forth between her apartment, but then my other roommate had 2 cats, so I was also living there with her 2 cats as well. Now I have a cat, so it's like anytime I'm moving with someone else, I'm like, hey, I do have a cat. So that's something to think about. For me, I know people have said that they had to pay extra for like pet fees. With my apartment, I just had to tell them that I had a pet. There was no extra fee. I even made my own contract for my pet. That was pretty much it. I think it's like a case-by-case basis on where you're moving, but for the most part, I don't have to pay for my cat. So yeah, I just told my apartment that was it. But there's something to think about with your who is like, are you living with just the people who are in the apartment, or do those people come with like their extra baggage, meaning like relationships and animals? For me, I don't know where Milo is. He was just right here. But for me, now my extra baggage is Milo. But yeah. So that's number one. Number two, where? So for me, when I was visiting New York City to decide that I wanted to live here and then looking at neighborhoods, I knew off the back I didn't want to live in the city. So Soho, Midtown, Upper West, Upper East Side, Harlem, the Bronx were all off limits to me. Honestly, looking back, I would consider Harlem possibly. I think there are certain parts of Harlem that I think are possibly doable, but I definitely wanted to have like a break from the city because I noticed that when I was visiting the city, I would be really exhausted being in the city all the time, and being that on the weekends, the main people that are in the city are tourists. I didn't want to be hanging out with the tourists, walking with them. No, I wanted to just be able to chill. So for me, that's where like Brooklyn and Queens area, it gave me like that break away from the city. But even people say it now that there's parts of Brooklyn that are like part two Manhattans, because downtown Brooklyn is like just as lively as the city is. So for me, I chose to live in like the Brooklyn Queens area. It gave me the break from the city. However, there is a commute for me. Like I said, it's like about a 30-45 minute ride into the city, and depending on where I go into the city, it could take me up to an hour. Like for me to get to Harlem from my house, it takes like an hour to get there, 2 trains, and that's not counting like if there is train delays or things like that. So I think it's hard to predict like where your hangout spots are going to be, but for the most part for me, I know a few weeks ago my cousin came and was like, oh, I'm in Harlem, we should hang out. And I'm like, dang, it's Sunday, I gotta go to work the next day. So if I'm hanging out with him, that means I gotta leave my house by this time, then I gotta come back home by this time to get back home, settle in, and get ready for the day, for the week. So there's just like little, I think like with New Yorkers, we're like calculating stuff. Yes, it is fun to like do stuff on a whim, but it's like you gotta think about like the mathematics of like, okay, I gotta do this, that, and the third, but is this train running? Is that train gonna be down, or is the train gonna stop here? So I gotta take a bus, or I need to take an Uber. Like there's just so many like logistics and stuff in New York City that that's something you just have to think about. Including in the where, how close is the grocery store? Because yes, the bodega does have stuff, but there are like little markets or like food markets. Like there's a lot of like Mr. Kiwis and Mr. Lemons in Brooklyn, but sometimes you just want like a real grocery store. So there's just like little things like that to think about when you're thinking about your where. For me, during the pandemic, I was really happy to be where I lived because there was parks nearby, there was grocery stores, I have like the Dollar Generals, other little things like that. So it felt like, okay, I'm really happy that I picked where I live because I don't feel like completely like depressed or isolated living here. So those are just a few things I would consider when you're thinking of your where. Including your where, I've obviously changed job locations so many times since living here, but you do want to think about your commute into work. Right now I'm on a hybrid schedule with my job, so I don't go to work every day, but the days I do go to work, it can take me a minute to get there and a minute to get back home. Also, sometimes my friends may say like, hey, let's go out to dinner after work, or hey, let's go do this. So I have to like factor in all those things. Like I mentioned earlier, sometimes your trains can be doing maintenance work. So you have to think about like, okay, this train is gonna stop running at 10 or midnight. So then what's gonna be my alternate route home? That's something I had to humble myself with really quick. I remember the first time my train went down and I was just like, I don't want to say I had a meltdown, but I was just like, what's going on? Like, what's happening? What is this? But that's a known thing, especially on the weekends or holidays where your train will like run on a Sunday schedule or run up until this stop and then you have to take the train bus. I remember one time I was going to the airport and I was like, I'm gonna save money and take the train to get there. And it turned out the train was not running the full way to the airport. So I ended up having to take like 2 buses, so much stuff, but luckily I mapped in enough time for delays. So I was still able to make my flight and everything, but it was just the process of getting there was just, so it's just so much to think about. And that's another thing where if you may want to not take an Uber to the airport, or how far away are you from the airport? Do you want to take like the train or a bus? Because it is possible, and it's not the end of the world. It's just logistics. That's going to be the keyword for New York City. It's the logistics of getting there. Okay, so the next tip is your what. I kind of went over this a little bit earlier, but what things do you want inside of your apartment? So some things to think about with your what, like I said earlier, is do you have an in-unit laundry? So like I said, you may not have it in the apartment. Not saying it's not possible, but it's just very rare. But is it like in the basement or somewhere within the apartment? Is there a laundry unit nearby? Also within your what, you want to be thinking about if you're gonna have like how much space you're gonna have. My room now is big enough for like, I have like my bed, I have my workspace area over here, I have like my closet over here. Like it's a pretty nice sized room for New York City. And then I also have my bathroom right here. So like for me, this is like a good space, a good size for me to like grow into or reduce. And then I think like anything else for me moving from here will just get bigger and better, or just more comfortable where I can really like spread out. And I also do have like a nice living space, so it's just little things to think about when you're thinking about your what. So 2 things that I think some people don't think about when they're thinking about their what is your apartment a walk up? More than likely, if you're living in New York City, it's gonna be a walk up. But how far is the walk up? My last apartment was a 4-floor walk up. Y'all, I had to work up 4 floors. So when I was moving, I had to move 4 floors and then move. Never again. Now I'm in a 1-floor walk up, so I'm on the 2nd floor. Thank the Lord. But moving from my last apartment was just horrible. There was no elevator, so I had to walk everything up. Grocery shopping, walk everything up. Laundry, walk everything down. And when it came time for laundry, the basement was the laundry unit. My last apartment was in the basement, so literally had to walk down the 4 floors and then walk an extra floor to get to the basement. Y'all, you know. So that's just like something to think about. My friend, her apartment, granted, she does live on the outskirts of New York City, but she has an elevator. So her moving process was completely different. Elevator that stuff up. She did of course like use like a moving company, but at least if she's going grocery shopping. Sorry about that, guys. Milo thought my tripod was a toy, so yeah, I'm gonna introduce you guys to Milo. Milo thinks this is time to play. Milo, say hi. Okay, so like I was saying, I don't know, I just don't like this question because it's kind of like I can't dictate what it's gonna be. For example, your rent is like a non-variable cost. It doesn't change. It's the same no matter what. It's not gonna go up, it's not gonna go down. At least while you're within that lease statement, it's not gonna go up or down. It's the same every month. Your utilities are gonna change based on your usage. So for me, I always prepare myself. I know when the summertime comes, our AC bill, our electric bill is gonna be through the roof because it's hot outside. We're pumping the AC because we're freaking hot. So it's gonna be through the roof. And that happens every year. It's crazy. However, in the wintertime, it's not usually crazy. It varies. Right now, me and my roommates, yep, this is life living with a cat. So Milo may be doing that a few more times throughout this video. If he does, just ignore it. But my sorry guys. So your utilities in the winter time can vary. For us right now, we aren't using, so right now while I'm shooting this video, it's titling winter, it's December. So right now we are not using our heat. So our heating bill is pretty low. It's like $50 for 3 people. But that's also including like other things on top of that, like our stove, electric, all that stuff, like gas. So I don't like that question because I just feel like it's based off how much you use. So when I was living by myself, all of my bills were low. My Wi-Fi bill is a non-variable bill. It doesn't change. It's the same every month, $84.99. but electric and gas, that changes because it's based off usage. So yes, if I'm living by myself, it's going to be low, but once I bring you in, and if you come with a significant other and you guys are basically living here together, but you're not, but you are, then of course the bills are going to go higher because it's like fucking 5 of y'all up in here with me. So that question for me sometimes is just like, it's going to be what it's going to be based off how much you're using. Sorry, I kind of rambled with that a little bit. I just, yeah. Okay, so you figured out like your criteria, you know, like the who of like who you want to live in an apartment with, you know, the what of like what you want included, the where. Now it's time to start the search. So when you're starting your search, some sites or places that I would suggest is Street Easy. That's a common place. However, like I mentioned earlier, one of my frustrations when I was looking on Street Easy is it's not like other places. Like I said before, you can find an apartment on Street Easy one day and it's going the next. One thing I do suggest is if you see an apartment and you're not quite ready yet to like take that apartment, I do suggest still reaching out to the landlord, because sometimes they'll have apartments that they haven't put up yet, but they know it's going to be available soon. So you can like reach out to them and say, hey, this is time frame looking for an apartment. Do you have anything coming up in that time frame? That's worked for me, where I have contacted landlords and I'm like, hey, in case this apartment does get sold, do you have anything coming up like within this time frame? Another place that you could look besides, really quickly before I go down for Street Easy, is like I was saying earlier, when you're looking at your where, Street Easy allows you to like pick by boroughs, pick your sizing, meaning like, do you want a studio apartment? Are you okay with 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, that kind of stuff. However, that confuses me on Street Easy because Milo just ran across my laptop. So if you don't have a cat, this is called the Zoomies. Milo is just high off of life and just exerting his energy. So I'm letting him do him. That's the kind of mom I am. So I'll scold him later, but it's okay. He's living his best life. So yeah, so like I was saying, one thing that confuses me about Street Easy is sometimes it'll say a 1 bedroom and you'll think, oh my God, 1 bedroom, $700, $800, that's great. No, it's a 1 bedroom inside of a 3 bedroom that they just put as a 1 bedroom because they're trying to get you. So make sure you read between the lines on Street Easy, and you'll learn certain phrasing that they use that's pretty common. That's not what it is, but it like you'll know. Aside from Street Easy, sorry, my computer just looked a little crazy. But aside from Street Easy, I would suggest Facebook pages and Facebook groups. A common one is Gypsy Housing. I don't know if they have an actual website, but I just know the Facebook page. That's where I found my apartment when I moved here. I never even saw the apartment. I just looked online. I don't know why. I was young and just living life. The lady did a FaceTime tour with me, and she kept asking me to come look at the apartment. I didn't tell her that I wasn't there yet until finally I told her like I'm not there yet, and she was like, oh great, one of your roommates is also not here yet. You're in Florida? Oh my gosh, she's also in Florida. And it turns out me and my roommate were like 30 minutes away from each other. Crazy. But yeah, so that is one place you can look. Another one, if you're Black, is there's Black POC housing. That one is another place you can look at. So it's basically a place for like Black people of color, and I feel like they should add queer, because it's a very like LGBTQIA++ place friendly. So you can, if you're like looking for people that are like Black and queer, you want to feel comfortable in your apartment, that's a known thing there. There's also just like regular like New York City housing, NYU housing, that kind of stuff. I'll list all of these pages in the description box if you're curious to look and see. One thing I know that Black POC requires is that you can't just post your listing. You have to also tell like a description about yourself, like a little about me. So you have to say like who you are, what you do, like that kind of stuff. You know, like what you're looking for, that kind of thing. And yeah, so just share that kind of stuff if you're green friendly, things like that. That's good for like the search process. So when I was moving to New York City, this was a popular question and a popular tip and this is a popular tip that I kept getting, was save money. I kind of disagree with that, but I also think it depends on who you are as a person. So for me, when I moved to New York City, I literally had enough money to pay my deposit and first month's rent. That's it. That's all I had. And I moved here. I like had money to move up here and everything like that, but I didn't save money. I personally felt like if I sat there and tried to save like $5,000-$10,000, because that was the amount that so many people kept telling me, I was never gonna move here. Never. So I'm happy that I just did it that way. I did like have my challenging parts where I was eating ramen noodles, but you know, bougie it up, add some boiled eggs. It's so much way to make it look gourmet. But I had my humbling moments. Do I suggest that to everyone? Yes and no, because I think if you really want to be here, just do it and you'll figure it out once you get here. But then no, if you know that you are like not gonna be able to like make rent and you don't want like to affect your credit score and other stuff, then like probably don't do that. But I knew for myself, like I knew I could make it happen, just figure it out, and that's exactly what I did. I was doing freelance work when I first moved here, and I found a way to make money to pay my rent every month and pay the utilities. And most of the utilities in my apartment was in my name, and my roommates would just pay me back later. So yeah, I think you could figure it out. So when it comes to like the saving money part, that's a you question you have to ask yourself. So yeah. Last about I forgot to say about searching for an apartment is NYC housing. So NYC housing was something that someone suggested to me. Basically, it's a lottery where anytime they build a new apartment in the city, like a bougie high rise or whatever, they have to allocate a percentage of that to low income housing. So that's a great thing for you to apply to. However, I don't want to say it's the issue, but the challenge with New York City housing is that you can't apply and expect to have an apartment within a month. Sometimes you apply and they'll say, okay, your application is in. However, the application doesn't close for a month and you can't even move to the apartment because it won't be done for another 6 months. So it's like, it's something that you have to like hold out on. For me, when I moved to New York City, I had made the decision in July that I was gonna move, and I moved here in September. So for me, doing New York City housing, it wasn't feasible, not feasible, it wasn't like attainable for me because I needed something in September and I wasn't gonna be able to like apply and find an apartment by September. It's just something that you have to like it's something I'm doing now to hopefully have something like by next year time frame, but we'll see. So yeah, so that's it with those tips. Okay, so you're still in your finding an apartment phase. This has changed in New York City over the last few years. So when I first moved to New York City, which I still don't fully get, but based off whatever the rent price is, you had to prove that you made 80 times the rent. I know. So that means that if you're moving here and your rent is 1,000, just throwing out a random number because it's easy math. If your rent is 1,000, that means you have to prove that you make $80,000. Y'all, we fresh out of college. Maybe you are engineer, lawyers, some creatives, y'all are, but $80,000, y'all. And if you don't, then you need a guarantor that I think it makes 120,000. Y'all, I never did the guarantor route. So I don't know, like if you have parents who don't make 120,000, I don't know if maybe you could put like both your parents' income together, so then that gives you the 120,000 income route. But anyway, never did any of that. Which, you guys, going back to what I said earlier, I really should have checked what I was doing because this was so sketch. Literally, I sent in a copy of my credit score. I screenshotted it, and 2 pay stubs. What did I do? 2 pay stubs, copy of my credit score, and I think that was it, and they approved me. Very rare that happens. Very, very rare, but it happened. However, that is not the case now. New York City does have new laws where I think landlords can't really do that. And yeah, if you're looking for an apartment with a broker, a broker. I don't know how that route works, but there is a fee that is associated with that route, so that all depends. But yeah, for me, I just did it by myself and I figured it out. So yeah, so those are all my tips for looking for an apartment in New York City. I hope this video helps you guys. I hope you guys move to the city. You guys, New York City is one of those places where whew, whew, it will humble you quick in all aspects. You really just have to be ready for anything. Even earlier this week, I was on the train headed to the city to get to work. A homeless guy came on the train. I was in the 2-seater seats, sat across from me and just started screaming. So that's what I mean by New York City will humble you quick. But if you really want to be here, like, just don't let people stress you out. I remember when I first moved to New York City, I was like kind of telling people like at my gym, like, hey, yeah, I'm gonna move. People were like, oh my God, don't do it. This is gonna happen, that's gonna happen, da da da. Not everyone's experience is gonna be your experience. It can happen. Even my roommate next door, which she was in my Chinatown video, she was lucky because our apartment was furnished. So literally she moved in within like a week because her room already had like a bed, a desk, and then my other roommate let her have her dresser. So like she got like a really good deal. So I think like you can find what you're looking for. You just gotta like look, and you just never know. You guys, you never know what can happen. So like I was saying, I really do hope you guys move to New York City. If that's what you want, it can happen. If this video did help and resonate with you guys, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe for more New York City content, vlogs, all that adventure travel stuff. Tell a friend to tell a friend, and get ready to like come and join this New York City craziness, cause yeah. But thank you guys so much for watching this video, for dealing with Milo, who is now chilling on the bed right now. So yeah, but I will see you guys in my next video, and until then, bye.